Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Practice Pulse podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Aditi Agrawal, general practicing dentist, as well as co-founder of Practice by Numbers. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting Ms. Dina Lynch Eisenberg. Hello, Dina. How are you today?
Hello. I'm very well. I'm excited to be here with you.
Same here. We're so excited to have you on Practice Pulse. So Dina has been in the healthcare industry for about 30 years, and that's amazing. And it's an achievement itself. And she is an award-winning mediator and a former healthcare attorney, and she has resolved more than 6,000 workplace conflict issues for companies like Coca-Cola, Polaroid, Twitter. That's a really impressive background. And now she is the founder and CEO of Talkola, which is a science based AI platform that enables leaders and teams to have difficult conversations with confidence and also to help resolve friction. That is so important and amazing. So, welcome, Dina.
Thank you. I think we're going to have an epic conversation. I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, same here, same here. So, tell me about how did you get started with Tacola?
Great question. You mentioned the 30 years, and over the course of the 30 years, what I was seeing over and over again is that organizations would become unhealthy, become toxic, and lose key people. And when I narrowed down and looked for the root cause,
Mhm,
very often it was because somebody, typically the leader, was avoiding conflict
mhm,
but because they didn't feel comfortable, because they didn't feel skilled, they might kick that can down the road. And I thought, well, the simplest thing to do is let people practice. So I created Tacola, which is based on real world scenarios, and it gives a chance for leaders and their teams to actually practice in private without anybody seeing and get personalized coaching so that the next time a situation comes up and you have to have a difficult conversation, you're not flustered and wondering what to say or how to act. You've already had some practice about the words that you want to use and the stance you want to take. So you're much more confident that you're going to enter the conversation well, have a productive conversation, and maintain the relationship afterwards.
mhm. That's amazing. That's amazing. So important to follow the steps, really, to be able to maintain a relationship. You think there are no steps, but there really are these invisible steps that you kind of have to follow to have something that is fruitful in the
Hmm.
end, for both, right? You talk about shadow friction. So that's quite interesting. How does that show up in the
Ooh,
devil's I know,
every, everybody has
right
at
into it.
some point experienced shadow friction. You might not have had that name, but I know that listeners have experienced this. It is the eye rolling, the heavy sigh, the
Mhm,
micromanaging, the gossiping, the meeting after the huddle, where people do and say whatever they're going to say. It's
mhm,
that feeling that is heavy, that you know somebody is upset, but it's not clear what's going on. And having shadow friction really damages a practice on so many levels financially, operationally, and certainly emotionally. So I really wanted to be able to make people aware of it and give them some solutions to get past it.
Yeah, and what are the key identifiers? Like, how could a dentist identify that these things are actually happening in the background?
Great question. One thing I notice with dentists is there's a certain belief, that's a good word, that if there's silence, if nobody is complaining, everything is fine. You probably experience this with other folks. Well, if nobody is saying anything, they're not giving suggestions, they're not sharing concerns, they're not talking about their work experience, you are experiencing shadow friction. And the reason that is because the environment has been become so uncomfortable, so psychologically unsafe, that people don't feel like they can speak up without maybe having a negative consequence or having somebody judge them. So they tried to speak up and nothing happened, which is the common case. They mention something, nothing ever comes of it, and it's like, did I say something? Because nothing happened. And then they're disengaged and they're silent. So if you're experiencing a lot of silence,
Mhm.
I know some people will like, thank goodness, but you should also be thinking, why is that?
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow, that's very interesting. Because as a dentist, we struggle. We think that a calm C is a good.
And it is a good thing. It is a good thing when you have the foundation. What I find is that in most practices, there's not a foundation to create the COMC. So there's not a communication plan and there's not a conflict management system. So people don't know how to raise issues effectively and respectfully. They don't know how to engage in that hard conversation without inadvertently hurting somebody's feelings or triggering them. So the best solution in most minds is let's just do nothing.
Mm, I understand. So when you talk about conflict management system, what can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I love talking about this. So I'm happy to elaborate. So, conflict management system is a way to effectively surface and resolve issues.
Mhm.
Not every issue should or can be resolved, so I should say that up front. But it's a way to effectively, consistently look at them. So one thing that I ask practice to look about at or think about is, do you have a confidential place where somebody could say what they need to say, whether that's good idea, something we should change. I'm having some issues with team members, those kinds of issues. Is there a safe place that they could bring that up where it's going to be confidential and they're not going to get a consequence? Usually the answer is no. And then I suggest using a fractional ombuds, which nobody knows what that is. So I'm going
Mhm.
to say an
Yes.
ombuds is an organizational conflict expert specializing in helping organizations stay healthy. So it's a two-prong approach. The ombuds is helping the talent navigate day-to-day issues and giving them that coaching they need to have those conversations, and they're gathering information anonymously about what is going on in the practice, who is unhappy, what is broken, what did we start doing that we probably should have asked more questions before we started to do,
Mhm.
right? And then the ombuds is able to anonymize all those insights and share it with leadership, so they get much more visibility into what happens on a day-to-day basis, what happens when they make decisions without including enough of the staff. They get those insights and then begin to have the ability to prioritize, okay, these are the things we need to start working on right now because they're impacting the business this way, and here are
Mhm.
the things that maybe we'll triage for a little bit later, but we want to at least let people know we heard them, because that is very important. Team members need to feel seen, heard, celebrated.
Mhm. Mhm. And who would you delegate in the office as the ombuds?
Well, I think it should be an external. And here's why. Because in most of the offices, people have been around a long time. You might have that one person everybody goes to and
Mhm.
says, what's going on? Help me. Which is great because you need that person. But that person isn't necessarily skilled to be neutral, to
Mhm.
give advice that's going to be helpful. Sometimes we're using our at home advice and the home training in that
Mhm.
capacity, which
Mhm.
works great at home, but doesn't necessarily work in the workplace. So I'm always suggesting you want a external neutral
Mhm.
who will come in and learn your business. Nice thing about that is that you have gaps you have no idea about. But
Mhm.
having the external come in and give you an intelligence briefing shows you where you have those blind spots and can give you some insights that you're not going to figure out on your own.
And how
And
do
the
Mhm.
trust thing.
But
Your team is going to trust the external a little bit more than internal.
and then how does a dentist like me find an external ombud?
Ah, wonderful question. The International Ombuds Association is all my colleagues, and they have a directory of what they say is outsourced ombuds. That same thing is fractional. I'm a fractional ombuds, and part of what I offer to my clients is, that ability to have X number of hours a month that I'm
Mhm.
going to be with their folks so they can call me up on Zoom. We have a conversation and we figure things out. So both they have two avenues: IOA or I'm available.
Gotcha. Nice. That's so cool. And so we just basically look online to find this organization
Yeah.
and uh, contact them, connect with them, and say, "Hey, we're looking to find an external ombuds to help me with my practice." And I'm guessing there is a cost associated with this, Tina.
There's generally a cost associated, and it's a great investment to make because when you think about the cost of losing folks and replacing them, extremely high right now. What is it like? 86% of dentists say that it's extremely hard to fill vacancies. So the
Mhm.
money that you're going to invest in the ombuds is very well spent. And usually it's they're on a retainer basis. So they're looking at your practice, evaluating the need, and then helping you understand on a monthly basis how many hours you might need.
Got it. Got it. And as you and I know that friction these days it has a huge financial cost, right? And so how does Tocola help with reducing friction in a dental office and thereby reducing financial costs?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, I'm sure for everybody, is turnover.
Mhm.
There's so many revolving doors in dentistry at the moment.
Mhm.
And being able to stop avoiding hard conversations, because if you avoid a hard conversation, your practice can't scale. You really can't grow.
Mhm.
Um, is really important. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought. What were you asking me again? I'm sorry.
About the friction,
Oh,
having, yeah.
Um, and so the financial cost around that is, you're spending money losing people. You're spending money on the production while they're gone. You're spending money on overburdened team members who now might start thinking about leaving because their workload is increased.
Mhm.
And this is the thing that most people don't think about, but the quality of patient care goes down when friction is high because
Mhm.
people are really focused on, watching their own back
Mhm.
and instead of maybe the patient and giving them the full attention and the care that they deserve. So there are lots of different costs, but financially, it's pretty significant when you start losing people and you do that on a regular basis and you're using locums to fill in.
Mhm.
Those are all expenses that are preventable. And when you prevent those costs, you increase your EBITDA.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as simple as that, right?
It is. It is. But I don't think people think about it, right? This is
Right.
not a priority,
Yeah.
but it should be.
Yeah. 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 So, interestingly enough, I know that you teach a framework called FACTS,
I
right?
do.
To help navigate these tough conversations. So can you
It
elaborate a little bit on
it
that?
does. It does. First of all, I just love the name cards. It's true. It's facts. These are the
Yeah.
facts you have to deal with. And I created it as a conversation map because dentists are so busy. You don't need something that's long, 10 million steps. You need something very quick that you can hold in your memory. But okay, so facts is flag the issue.
Mhm.
Then you want to assess the impact. What happened and what does that really mean in our practice? And I
Mhm.
should just back up. Flagging the issue is making the distinction between is this really an issue or is this just something I don't like? Because often when team members are doing things in a way that you don't normally do, but they found their own way, some
Mhm.
leaders will say, well, that's wrong. Instead of
Mhm.
saying, well, let me think about why, or ask them why they're doing it that way, because it might actually be an improvement, right?
Mhm.
So you want to first flag and think about, is this actually a problem or just a difference? Then it's assess the impact. What is the impact on the practice, the financials, and the people of
Mhm.
whatever the issue is? Then you want to clarify expectations.
Mhm.
What is it that you want people to be doing instead of what they're actually doing, right? So that you
Yeah.
can share that with them because if it's not clear and actionable, then they can't do it.
Yeah.
T is the one that I think surprises people the most because it's not what you would expect. T is termination triggers.
Mhm.
And the reason I mention this is because it's very hard on a leader to have to terminate somebody. And
Mhm.
typically, you wait until the last second to make that decision because you're trying to do everything else but that. But if
Yeah.
you are not very clear on what is a terminable offense, what
Mhm.
that looks like,
Mhm.
then you're going to be confused in making your decision. So you want to decide that ahead of time. When these five things happen, we're on the path to termination. So you need to know what that is and
Mhm.
then stay in the conversation. So
Mhm.
sometimes I meet doctors who are they'll learn to have the conversation and then they think, okay, done, I'm out, I'm free, I'm good now. Well, the truth of the
Guilty
matter
as
is,
charged.
yeah. Okay, I did not mean to call you out.
Good. It's all good. I deserve it.
But the thing is, once you have the conversation, that is the open door. It's not the end. It's the beginning of reinforcing. Like a week later, how is that going? 2 weeks after that, come back if there's anything you need to talk about. Or I find this one little thing we need to finesse and refine so the solution works. Right? So you still have to stay engaged because one, everything might not be fixed. And two, you want this team member to know you still care about them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it is so true. Trust me. Again, guilty as charged. As you said, we just fall into old patterns. I think, as a dentist, I want to be, oh, one more thing off my checklist, right?
Yes.
Instead of thinking about it in a holistic way, I and I I know there are other dentists out there who are guilty of this, that we think about it, it's like a checklist that we literally have to cross off, rather than considering it that no, this is not a checklist. This is
Mhm.
going to impact my practice in a much bigger and broader sense. And
Mm.
I think we forget about that. And and I don't blame the dentists out there, guys. I
No.
don't blame you, because I know, and I'm a dentist and I'm practicing as well, right? Still. And things in the practice happen and you get distracted by X, Y, and Z. There's always a fire to put
Yeah.
out. uh, it's very rare that there isn't one. And so you forget that systemizing things, including the staffing, the conversations that you have with staff, can lead to better patient care and less drama, but you just don't focus on systemizing that. And I think what you have created, Dina, with Tacola, is really a system, a simple way that of steps that if you follow from A to Z, you will most likely have better outcomes. Of course, nothing is completely predictable. It's the
Mm.
human, we are working
Hmm.
with humans here, and they can be unpredictable, but for the most part, it will give you better outcomes. You know, Also, Tacola gives dentists and teams a way to practice difficult conversations safely. Now, tell me a
Yes.
little bit about that.
Yes. Because often what people tell me is, I am afraid to say the wrong thing.
Mhm.
I'll say something and I won't be able to get myself back out. And
Mm.
I completely understand that because lawyers, and I'm a lawyer, like
Mhm.
dentists, we learn to be great technicians, perfect at our doing our technical job.
I tell
But
you, dentists and lawyers.
yeah, nowhere in either of our educations do they say, oh, by the way, you have to work with people and you might want to learn how to communicate and navigate conflict. That just does not happen. So if you're a listener, you're feeling like, oh, I feel bad, I don't know how to do this, don't feel bad. You were not trained to do this, and it was not impressed upon you that this is a priority for you. So start today and decide that in the coming year, 2026, you're going to pay more attention to what does it feel like for my talent, my team, to be in my practice? What does it feel like for me to lead this practice? And how can I make us all feel connected and working to the same goal? One of the things I talk about is that nobody actually has employees, if you think about it. What you
Mhm.
actually have is a community. Communities are created by people who share a common goal. The common goal in your practice is that you all have decided that you would want to work together to create an exceptional patient experience, right? So if you can sort of think of it that way, how will my community feel about this? It's a
Mhm.
lot different feeling than, like, what do my employees want?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a mindset shift, really.
A very big one, a very big one, but not hard to do once you start seeing the outcomes. Because when you start practicing in this way, your team is going to respond. They're going to want to give you the extra that they were going to give you anyway because required because of the circumstances of being in a fast-paced scenario. But now they're going to give it to you because they realize you care about them and they want to care about you back. They want to help you complete your goal, to do your mission. And that's what I try to remind dentists. Your team is there because they support your dream, and
Mhm.
that's what they're trying to make happen. So kind of keep that in mind.
That's so well put, so well put. Your team is there to support your dream. So help support them, make them successful in their jobs so that they can actually help you realize your dream. So, so well said, Dina. That I'm going to carry with me for a long time. Um, because it really, it activates my heart center there. That's so true. If our listeners want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
I would love to speak to any of your listeners. Happy to offer some advice. They can certainly find me on LinkedIn for sure. It's Dina Lynch Eisenberg. You can go to my website, which is tacola.com. This year, we're really trying to expand our reach a little bit. We've been working with practice owners, but we've also understood that their teams want a little bit of support. So we're releasing new um, field guides for management so they can come to the site and learn about our field guides, which will give you a little bit leg up on your next conversation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And as a gift to our listeners, I think you are giving a little something away, as far as I
I
know.
Yeah, I think I am. I'm happy to offer your listeners what I would call the preamble guide.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's I'm laughing because in my mind I'm thinking it's so simple. The preamble is the way that you start a hard conversation. Who has ever heard this? We have to talk. Anybody who's ever heard that has felt the fear come into their heart.
Oh, that's scary.
That's right. So the
Remind me of
preamble,
my mom. Like, oh no,
exactly.
what I do
The,
now.
no good comes after those words. So the preamble is really about teaching you to do it in a different way. Instead of demanding someone's attention, which is what those words do, the preamble is about inviting someone in a very gentle way to have a conversation that you think is going to be productive. So I'm happy to share that. Anybody who emails me will get it.
Awesome.
Dina,
I
here's a
can't
reminder.
wait.
Cancel Dollar Flight Club Premium Plus membership.
Sorry. Please
You're
stop.
fine, Dina.
Dina,
Well, it
here's
was
your reminder.
great
Cancel
to
Dollar Flight
connect with
Club
you.
Premium Plus
Very
membership.
good to connect with you. I appreciate you wanting to talk about this because I think it's one of the areas that sometimes dentists don't necessarily want to
Yeah,
approach,
yeah.
and giving them this opportunity to think about it and know that there are resources available to them to solve this problem. I think it's very generous of you and certainly is going to make an impact in the industry.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to impact the industry because I know that we as dentists do have, sometimes we need some courage to have those difficult conversations. And, like you mentioned, we're not truly trained to have those conversations. We're very, very good at technical conversations, but when it comes to those heart centered people conversations, we do tend to uh, over analyze them and get a little bit technical with those conversations as well. And, we just have to take a step back and remind ourselves that this is not something that we need to dissect. right? This is
No.
something that we need to just absorb, maybe understand, and come forth in a different way, possibly without the technicality, because, type A personalities that we are,
Oops.
oops. Like I said, dentists and lawyers, we could
Yeah.
get very stuck in a in a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and we need to and forget about the bigger picture. And I think there are many dentists who actually have um, can see the bigger picture, and they honestly, the difference between a good dentist and a great dentist is not the procedures that they can do.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
the team that they can lead. And a lot of the times, the team can be led simply by managing those conversations. So, thank you for giving a resource to dentists to be able to move from good to great simply by using their mouths.
Yes. Ah, I love that. Their mouths. So this is not a head thing. This is a heart thing, and you're gonna let. I love that you focus on being so heart centered. It's a heart thing. So think
It-
about how you want to feel. Think about how you want the other person to feel, and the words will come.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Dina. That was so enlightening. I loved it. I
Thank you so much.